Senator, when we looked at the battle for the Kavanaugh seat, everyone, we'll go talking about the high school yearbook. You hear how many questions started? What did you mean when you signed the yearbook? Talk about Ralphing. What is Ralphing? When you rented that bus and went to Fenway Park, was there beer on the bus? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In your research, have we ever gone through something as juvenile as that? And talking about the Kavanaugh hearing, of course.
It was ugly, and it really was. It had become the theater of the absurd. The Democratic base demands that they go after any Republican nominee. But what they did to Kavanaugh was ridiculous. And, he had two young daughters sitting behind him, listening to them drag him through the mud, drag his character through the mud. They began to surface these fantastical allegations of wild parties in high school in D.C. that had no basis in anything, but they would repeat them. I think it reached the point of idiocy when Cory Booker stepped forward and had his "I am Spartacus" moment, which was clearly much more about presidential politics in Iowa than actually doing your job on the Judiciary Committee. And given that, and by the way, this is not the first time they've done that. They did it to Robert Bork before that. They did it to Clarence Thomas before that. They did it to Sam Alito before that. And I fully expect them to try with anything they can find. I met with Judge Barrett a couple of days ago, and I somewhat tongue-in-cheek told her, they're looking right now for somebody in third grade who has something mean to say about you.
Senator, I actually thought, and I didn't get to the president. He was on with us last week on this show. I actually thought of saying, are you sure she wants this? I didn't know. After the Kavanaugh situation, and knowing that she's a mom of 7, already has a great job and a lot of respect, number one in Notre Dame, would you blame someone to say, skip me?
Look, it would be a perfectly reasonable decision for someone to make, and it is, you are putting your life into a blender, and you're subjecting your kids. I actually, when she and I talked, that was something we talked about a bit, is I was talking to her. She has 7 kids, including a number who are quite young. And I was really just talking to her about how her kids were holding up with
Yep.
everything that was happening. I mean, a month ago, she had a quiet life in Indiana. She was a law professor. She was a federal judge. But, walking down the street, nobody would recognize her. And suddenly she's in the midst, the glaring light and the attacks. Now, one of the things I told her, which I think gave her comfort, I said, look, you need to know right now there are literally millions of Americans and people all over the world who are praying for you, who are praying for your family, who are lifting your family up, who are praying a hedge of protection around you. And I'll tell you, she has, I believe, a real inner strength and inner peace. And we talked about it because I've got young kids. My girls are 9 and 12, and they've endured when folks take shots at me, and sometimes even at them. It's not easy for kids, and they didn't sign up for it. And so I just tried to talk to her a little bit about that and how you make it through. But it's definitely, it is an ugly price of public service.
And you talk about one vote away, how this country could have been so different if a different judge was there at a different time, if a different president wasn't there to nominate a different judge, and the different courses we've taken our country, which brings me to today. And I want to tell you this. This is not, what Chuck Schumer's about to say is not a veiled threat. I actually think it's their game plan. They know they can't stop besides if something unforeseeable happens. They cannot stop Amy Coney Barrett from being an associate justice. But if it happens, this is what Chuck Schumer says is going to happen. Cut 28.
On D.C. and Puerto Rico, particularly if Puerto Rico votes for it, D.C. already has voted for it and wants it. I'd love to make them states.
Okay.
And as for the filibuster, I'm not busting my chops to become majority leader to do very little or nothing. We are going to get a whole lot done. And as I've said, everything is on the table.
Senator, if they take the White House and Senate and hold the House, is Chuck Schumer serious?
Deadly serious. Now, they were going to do all of that before the Supreme Court vacancy. So this is not an escalation. This is the fact that the hard left, the radical left, is driving the Democratic Party. So if they take the Senate, the first thing they do, I believe, will be ending the filibuster. And they'll do it. They have the votes. They'll do it. It will be gone. What that means is the minority in the Senate can then no longer stop whatever radical agenda they're trying to force through. The other thing he mentioned, statehood for the District of Columbia, statehood for Puerto Rico. I think that they will do that as well. And their reason is very simple. In their calculation, they believe that they would elect 4 new Democratic senators. So that if we start in January, say, with 50 Democrats, their plan would be to end the year with 54 Democrats. And it's all about, it's a crass political calculation about entrenching their power. And the big threat that all of that sets up is then packing the Supreme Court, increasing the number of justices in the court to 11 or to 13. And I think there's a very real possibility they would do that. I think their extreme base wants it. You know, we had a Democratic president try it in the past, FDR, and at the height of his power, and his own party, the Democrats, told him no, that was too far, that was politicizing the court. Brian, I don't think these Democrats today would say no. I think they would take that step, which would be incredibly destructive to the independence of the judiciary and the integrity of the court.
And the way I understand it, Senator, that when FDR did threaten to do that, maybe he didn't get it, but he got what he wanted because he threatened to do it.
Well, there's an old phrase that you learn in law school called the switch in time that saved 9. Which is that the court had been ruling, striking down a number of big New Deal programs as unconstitutional. FDR pushed his court packing plan, and one of the justices who had been voting to strike them down switched his position and began voting on the other side. And that's often referred to as the switch in time that saved 9, because they say that's why the packing plan failed. I think it failed because the Democratic Party recognized it was an abuse of power. You don't have Democrats willing to say that anymore. There's really, when they're willing to smear and slime families and small children, and when they're willing to any means are justified by the ends they're fighting of radical socialism, and that's an unfortunate change in today's Democratic Party.
Senator, thanks so much. Congratulations. One Vote Away is out there. It's top 10 on Amazon right now. It's likely to stay. Senator, thank you.
Appreciate it. God bless.